Somewhat inspired by David Perel's podcast, How I Write, I've started a series on the YouTube channel about how I write. Each video going through a writing project from start to finish, covering other elements of my writing process with other projects as I go through, because I don't just sit down and write for 7 hours, I do jump between projects. So I want to show you in this video how I set up my Obsidian so that when you look around or watch any of those videos, you don't get completely lost and all the clicking backwards and forwards, and it gives you a bit of context as to how I lay out my Obsidian for writing and working. I will leave a link in the description for a template download, but you can just build it from scratch from this video. So what you're seeing now is Obsidian. If we have a look on the left hand side, we've got the left ribbon. That's the top button of the left sidebar, right at the top. Then below the collapse button, we have the quick switcher, the canvas, the insert template, open command palette, and templater buttons. I personally don't use any of these buttons, and the only one really worth paying attention to is this top one, Open Quick Switcher. If I click it, what that allows me to do is quickly switch between different files inside of my Obsidian. So what is Obsidian? If I go onto my computer, you can see this PC, I'm in my G hard drive, I'm then in my Obsidian folder or OBS folder, and I'm in my personal Obsidian vault. And that's what you're seeing inside of Obsidian. If we have a look on the left hand side, we've got Canvas as a folder, we've got Class as a folder, Other folder, Projects folder, Sources folder, Templates folder. And they are the exact same folders here, because Obsidian is just a folder that you're seeing all at once. So if I double click into this templates folder on my computer, you can see we've got essay, event, feedback, and if I open up the templates folder inside of Obsidian, we have the exact same files. So you've got the same folder, the Zotero folder's there, and then we have the same files. So Obsidian is just a folder that's been opened up and you can see the files inside of it. The biggest difference is the files that you make inside of Obsidian. If you have a look, it says MD document. So each of these files are what's called an MD document. If I go into it, you saw there, this is Markdown, MD, Markdown. So the hash is a symbol that tells Obsidian, hey, this is a heading 1. If I look at this one, this hash, there's 2, so this is a heading 2. If I push hash 3 times, it goes to heading 3. 4 is 4, 5, 6. And so in this left sidebar, I have all of my folders with files in. And so when I open the quick switcher, I can go to the essay template file quickly. If I go down to the bottom of the ribbon, I can change the vault, and that opens up this vault switcher here. So you can see I've got 3 different vault folders. One's called personal, the folder we're in. One's private, the one we're not in, and then another folder which I sometimes go into. Those completely new to Obsidian, you are likely going to create a new vault, which is just a folder on your computer that will have a .obsidian folder in and maybe a .trash folder in. This is where all of the settings are stored. There's the help button that you will rarely need to go to, and then the settings cog, which is where I'm going to go to now. Now, Obsidian has loads of settings that you'll probably play with, and I play with sometimes, depending on what I want to do, but a general rule of thumb is just to keep everything default. I don't bother messing around too much in here. When I go to Files and Links, I have my Sources folder and Images folder, so all of the images that I bring into Obsidian goes into the Attachment folder, which is the Images folder. That just saves some time. Then inside of the Appearance settings, I've changed my font to Inter. You can manage and then select any of the fonts from the drop-down list. So if you want to change any of the fonts, you can do. I have Inter because I like when I come in here and I push the dash and then a greater than, it turns it into an arrow. So if I zoom in, you can see I now have an arrow. If I do that with the equals, gives me another arrow. That's just a font style. But probably the most important part of this is the additions CSS. That is why I have the orange at the top here. That is why as I move the cursor around, it highlights certain blocks, and how I've changed the color of the heading. So heading 1 is orange, heading 2 is a different orange, and why heading 3 is blue. There are some other small custom changes in there, but they are the main ones. I have loads of hotkeys, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but the main ones to keep note of are the ones that I'm going to share when I go through the community plugins. These core plugins are built and maintained by the Obsidian team, so that's why they are core to the Obsidian app. You can see the ones that I have on and the ones that I don't. You can stop the screen and then add the settings to which ones you want or don't want, but I just turn off a lot of the settings that I don't actually use. If I jump down to you can see core plugin settings, the backlinks, I have them show at the bottom of the file, so you've got to turn that on. For the Canvas core plugin, which I rarely use, I mainly, as you can see, food. I do that for food planning. That's basically it. These are the settings I have. I have it specified to the Canvas folder, so all new canvases go to the Canvas folder. The command palette is just default settings. File recovery, I have the history length quite high at 600 and the snapshot at 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, it creates a snapshot and it keeps those for 600 days. The note composer default settings. The page preview, I have it so I have to hold control to actually see the page preview unless I'm in the editing view. If I hover over with the mouse, you can see it's changing color because it's a link, but if I hold control, now it gives me a page preview. I've changed that to have to hold control because I don't want this popping up every time. And you can change the settings obviously in here, page preview, and then toggle it on or off. In the quick switcher, I show attachments, but I also show files that don't currently exist. And this is another change or another difference in Obsidian that I find useful. If I come to the top of Obsidian and push square bracket, I now have two square brackets and it opens up a search. And this is what's called an internal link inside of Obsidian. You can see we have Educational Science in a Nutshell is a file inside of the other folder. So it's inside this folder. If I open up the folder, you can see there is the file. When I go back into the brackets, there is that file. It's showing me the file. So if I go to a different one, let's say exclusions in school, I've now created what's called an internal link. And this is in the editing mode. So if I hover over, it gives me the page preview because that's the setting. I don't need to push control then, but I do here because this is a query, which I'll get to in a minute. But with this link, I can left click and it takes me to the file. If I go backwards, it takes me back to the Educational Science in a Nutshell, but I can middle click with my mouse wheel on my mouse, and what that will do is open it up in a new tab. So I have two tabs open in Obsidian with two different files. If I left click on the tab and hold the left click and then drag all the way to the right, you can see we've now got an orange. I can split screen it to the right. If I go to the tab, left click and drag and go all the way down to the bottom, I can now split screen up and down. If I left click and drag, I can actually put it in this sidebar. You can see I'm moving it around in the sidebar. We've got an orange line there. Go underneath these two plugins. If I drag that down, I now have the file in the sidebar, or I could drag it to the right sidebar, but I'm going to drag it back into here so we've got a split. However, exclusions in school is a file that I've already created. If I go bracket, and then say new file, now leave, you can see it doesn't actually come up with an option to click it because it says new file is not created yet. When I go back to the quick switcher, it says show existing files only. So when I click on quick switcher and type in new file, you can see there's an icon there, it says plus. So if I was to click here, it would create a file called new file. If I turn this setting off, now when I search for new file, the option doesn't come up to create it because I don't want to see the files that haven't been created yet. And to remove this line, I'm going to use a hotkey Control D that deletes the line, up with the arrow key, delete the line, so it's just making everything cleaner. And it's nice and easy with a hotkey because I don't have to click and drag to highlight the text. I can just delete it, Control D, or undo with Control Z. And I've just noticed I can't spell, so I'm going to right click and then actually change the spelling to skeptical. I could add this to the dictionary, but I'm just going to keep it to skeptical and then come and close down this folder because I like seeing this nice and clean. But now moving down the settings, I use Obsidian Sync, so I sync this folder with my phone. They're my sync settings. I basically keep everything off except from syncing the images. And for templates, which I'll go through in a bit, I use the templates folder. So I have a folder for all the templates. That's the folder that I showed a second ago. And these are all of the templates that I have inside of my Obsidian. And this templates core plugin is actually used with one of the community plugins which I use, which is inside of here. If I go up to the options community plugins and I click on browse, I then get an option of, at the moment, 1,500 plus plugins, and these are community developed plugins. So if the developer decides they don't want to maintain it anymore, then it may stop working, which has happened to a few of these. So bear that in mind if you do start using community plugins. You can see it will show you that you've installed plugins. So I've got tasks, Dataview, Templater, Quick Add, and you can search for any plugin. So if I type in update, it then says, hey, this is the plugin update tracker. I've also installed this one. And when you click on a plugin, you see this one says options and it will take me to the settings and it shows me some information about the plugin. This one I don't have. Here I could then install it and then enable it so I'm using the plugin. So going to the exit here, I can then come into the community plugins and see my installed plugins and scroll down. These are all the plugins I've got, and all of these actually have settings, so I can go to the better word count setting. The main reason I have this plugin is so when I have a look down in the bottom right, you can see at the moment, it's going to show the amount of words and characters in the file, and here if I highlight this, it's now going to show me I've highlighted 3 words and 34 characters. The reason I use the community plugin is the core plugin doesn't let you do the highlight and show you the words and characters bit. Dataview is a very complicated plugin which I have a video on which I'll share at the top right, but that is what these query blocks are. If I click in here, it gives you a load of code which basically just says, hey, go and look for files inside of these folders and show the links when you find it. And in this case, you can see that's what these are. These are Dataview queries showing me files. So it makes finding information far easier because it just collects them automatically. So for example, I know this query is going to look for files that are inside of the project folder that are not linked. Okay, so if I create a new file, right click and then new and call it new project, you can see I've got a new project file inside of the projects folder. If I open that up, change the sort order by created time new to old, you can see there is the new project file that I've just created. If I go back, let's actually open that up so I can push Control O on my keyboard to open up the quick switcher. That's the button in the top left of the ribbon. Search for the new project. So I've typed in new. There's the new project. Push enter. It's now opened that file in the right tab. And you can see it's showing inside of my project inbox because this file isn't linked to this file. If I have a look in the right sidebar, you can see it's changing. This is the outline core plugin. So it's showing the headings. So you can see project is the heading at the top, inbox is the heading underneath, source is the heading underneath that, and there's actually information inside this source because I've toggled it shut. So there's a query that I can hide or show. But if I go right to the top of the sidebar, there are other options. I have the search. I recently searched for Feynman. You see it's showing all of the results where Feynman appears in either the file title or inside of the file itself where I've written the word Feynman. So it's inside of Effective Educators, and inside of there you can see it's in there 5 different times. But what I'm looking for is the backlinks for the new project. So a backlink is a link that goes back to the file. The other one is an outgoing link. So what I want to do is inside of this file, this educational science in a nutshell file, is create an outgoing link. So that's square bracket, new project, and then enter. If I push enter again and move the cursor down, you can see now I have an outgoing link in educational science. So if I go over to that panel, there are lots of outgoing links, it's 384, but this is a new outgoing link. Then when I click over to new projects, you can see it's a backlink to the educational science in a nutshell file. If I toggle this open, you can see there it is. I've linked it. If I come down to in progress, go square bracket, and then new project, I now have a second outgoing link, and this is going to create a second instance of where the backlinks are. So if I toggle this open, you see new project. And for those vigilant, if I look down the bottom of this file, here are the backlinks. And that is this setting right here. So I'm in the core plugins backlinks in document. I have this turned on so it shows up at the bottom so I don't have to mess around in the right sidebar. I rarely use the unlinked mentions, but I've just deleted those outgoing links inside of this file. And if I type new project, so those words are exactly the same as the file name. So if I click on the unlinked mentions, you can see actually there's 4 different mentions here, but if I toggle this open, there is the new project. So these words here, new project, match the file name. So if I click link, you can see it's now turned this into a link, and now it's a backlink. It's not an unlinked mention, it's a backlink. And throughout that explanation, you may have noticed the project inbox is not showing the new project file when there is a link. So if I delete this, now there's no outgoing link to the new project, and there's no backlink from the new project to educational science in a nutshell. And that's what this query is looking for. The reason I have this project inbox at the top is when I create a new project, I want to see all of those new projects that haven't been linked in a section. So I'm going to go to the top, I'm going to middle click, I'm going to use the mouse wheel middle click on the tab to close the tab down. Now I'm going to use a shortcut, shift and then right arrow key. And you can see now I'm showing the same file twice. The other way I could do that is by right-clicking on the tab and then split to the right. So you see now it's done it again, and now I can see the file 3 different times. If I close the left sidebar and the right sidebar, it's easier to see them all, but I'm actually going to use the outline. So I'm going to open this up, close this tab down, middle mouse wheel click again, and now in this section I want to go to the outline plugin, which shows me all of those headings, and let's, for hypothetical sake, say this new project is something to do with school curriculum. I can jump down here, then enter to create a new line, and you can see it's creating a task automatically. That's a task plugin, which I'll go through later. I then go bracket, bracket, new project. And now I have this new project linked in the curriculum section is going to disappear from my project inbox. Then I click on new project and I can see, okay, this project is linked inside of the Educational Science Nutshell. Wait, what section is that under? Then I click the show more context, and I can see other projects around it, or I can actually click here and it take me to the link. So I can now see, oh, this is under the curriculum section. But I don't actually want this. I'm going to delete the file using my hotkey, Control Alt Backspace. You can right click and then delete. You can see delete the file and it's permanently deleted. So I'm going to use my hotkey to delete it. And now it's gone to that blurry link because it's not actually been created, and I don't want it here either, so Control D to delete that line, and then I want to close down this tab too. But while I'm writing, obviously I don't want to see this file all the time. So what I've done is I've dragged it into the sidebar, you see here, and now I can see the file inside the sidebar, which I can collapse and expand so that I can see what projects are in the inbox, what projects are in progress while I'm writing. So if I go to this project, I'm writing in this project, and if I collapse that down, I can then add a new project from here, which if I go back to the settings, you see I've gone through the Betterware account, gone through Dataview. If I go down, we've got Quick Add. And all of these are different settings for quickly adding a new file. You see here, we've got the new. So when I push Control N on my keyboard, it gives me the option to add any of these options. So ingredient, meal, essay, Danny video, source, or educational science. So as I'm doing this project, I push Control N. Educational Science, that's the project I want to make. So I pushed Enter on my keyboard. Now I type out the new project. So new project, just like we had before, and then push Enter. Now I've created a new project, but I don't want to leave this file in ecological way to then go and have a look for that project. So I open up the sidebar, then scroll up, and you can see in the inbox, there's the new project, because the file was automatically created and it's automatically being shown inside of this query. And so I can middle click on my mouse for this new project and it will open it up in a new tab. I can drag it to the side and you can obviously see there's information already in this new file, but I didn't add that in. That was automatically added. And that is because if I go to the Quick Add settings and go to the settings of the Educational Science one, that's the button that I pushed a minute ago, you see Templates, Video Template ES, and it creates the file in the project folder. So going to the Templates folder and going to the Video Template ES, that's the one that's in the new Quick Add, you see there's all the information that's currently in the new project. So every time I create a new project with the Educational Science, so Control N, Educational Science, so I can enter because it's already there already. Another new project, enter. Let's go back to the inbox. You can see there's the new project. Middle click on my mouse to open that one up. Another new project in the left side. See, there's all the information. Looks exactly the same as the template because it is. And the new project here is exactly the same because it's using the template. Now, I don't want this file, so I'm going to use the hotkey to delete that. Control Alt Backspace for me. And as you notice, the Video Template ES is going to be different from all of these other templates. So when I go to the settings and let's say source, let's go to the settings here. You can see templates, source template. And this one is being created in the source folder. So this new project file is in the projects folder. So if I close down that one, you can see projects, it's in the projects folder. That's where it's created. The new source quick add. So when I go Control N, S for source, enter, new source, enter, that's going to create a new source file inside the sources folder. So what I'm going to do is change the sort order to new old, close down the book folder, and there is the new source. So if I click on that one, this is the template for a source, which is just title and URL. Nothing complicated because I don't need anything complicated, but this is already in for a reminder, hey, what's the title of this thing? And is there a link to the online, whatever it is. So that's a brief overview of Quick Add. I'll link a video if I've done a video on Quick Add up in the top right. If not, then I will put it on my list of things to do. Metadata menu. I've done a video on this, I know, so I will link that in the top right now. And what this lets me do is, as you can see, I've got a little video icon, and when I click on that, it lets me change what's called metadata or YAML or properties. They all mean the same thing, property information of the file. So is it active, true or false, yes or no? Is it done, true or false, yes or no? What channel is this for? Educational science, and if I click on here, Danny Hatcher or other, so they're YouTube channels that I have. If I go back to educational science in a nutshell, you can see as I go down to other sections, let's say perception, I have different icons, so I can immediately see, okay, this is a video project, this is some research, this is a source, and if I scroll down, you can see there's a pen, so this is an essay. That's my very limited use case of metadata menu, but you can do a lot with it. The Pandoc plugin lets me export my markdown files in Obsidian to Word. There's no real need for most people to use it, but these are the settings. I don't actually use that, so I can delete that now. Yeah, it's just the default settings, and this is where the Word documents go. They go to my main Vault folder. This community plugin just tells me if there's an update, so where I go to community plugins, instead of having to click check for updates every time, in the bottom status bar you can see I've got a tick with a plug. That's what the update plugin is, and it says I'm all up to date. If I'm not, it will give me a red 1 or 2 or 3 telling me how many updates I actually need to do. I also use the task plugin, as you will have seen inside of this file. I've got a completed date, so it automatically gives me when I'm done with it. This little emoji here is a priority for the task. So if I use my hotkey, Control-Shift-N, it lets me edit or add a new task. There's the description, the chess teacher bit there, there's the link. I can add priorities, I can make it recur, due date, schedule date, start date. There's loads of stuff to this plugin, but simply put, I can tick off something done or not done inside of the file. But you don't actually need the task plugin to have a task, you can just make a task. So if I use my hotkey, that was Control-Enter, or you can add in this markdown, so a dash, space, square bracket, and then space and start writing, then it's a new task block. This also suggests comes from the task plugin, which obviously you would need to install as a community plugin, but if you just want default tasks, you don't need it. I have Templater installed for one very specific use case, which I'm not going to go over here because it's really not relevant and I rarely use it, but I figured I'd mention that I have it. And then Zotero integration, I have done a couple of videos on this, one of them quite recently talking about how I use the plugin with different templates. So I'll link that in the top right. And then for those curious about this thing at the top, it's the Bookmarks core plugin. So again, this is developed by Obsidian. And what I've done is it's like a favorites bar or a starred panel. I can add any file. You see, there's the file title. I can add that to a group. I don't have any groups, but you can add a file to the bookmarks. So let's say I'm working on this. I can then add this to the bookmarks, saves. I can then drag this up and down as a priority, put it into a group, but mainly it's just so that it makes navigating to the file easier. I'm going to right click, remove it, and then jump back to the main file. And in the bookmarks, I have my, I guess you could call this a dashboard page, a main page, a query page. It's just the place that I go to find stuff out. And then I have my food canvas, which is a canvas of the week planning of food, what I'm going to eat, what I'm not going to eat. So see Monday through Sunday and then lunch all the way through to tea. Then we've got shopping list, which is not complicated at all. It's quite literally just a file of tick boxes, which I sync to my phone. So I know I'm going to go to Asda and get these things. So I'm going to go to Lidl's and get these things. And money, which I'm not going to click on because obviously it's finances, is actually an Excel document. So for those of you that have reached this part of the video or skipped to this part of the video, prepare yourselves. I'm now going to show detect all file extensions. So when I click on this, it's now going to show .bib file, .csl file, another .bib file, and a CSS file inside of my Files Core plugin. They are different types of files that Obsidian doesn't normally recognize. And when I go to my others folder, you can see there's a zip file, and there is one Excel file which I can open for you. So if I click on that, it opens an Excel document of data that I collected for an article that I was reading, but I wanted to have it linked inside of Obsidian, so I made the Excel file, then I linked it inside of Obsidian so I could click and open it. And I've done exactly the same with my money Excel document, and then because it's in Obsidian, I've bookmarked it, so I can go and do my finances in my Excel spreadsheet and navigate there from Obsidian rather than having to open it up in my documents. That is a somewhat quick overview of my Obsidian, but when I'm going through the videos inside of this series, things may change, look different, because as I write, as I evolve my Obsidian, things may change, such as the queries or the location of different plugins, maybe new plugins or plugins are removed. And of course, files will change, so if you have any questions on something that I do while I'm doing any of these series videos, just put it in the comment section and I will try and answer as best as I can. So here is a link to the playlist, hopefully, and you'll be able to go through literally any of the videos that I've done, because all of them are going to be slightly different. Maybe you go for the most recent one, or you start at the beginning. It's up to you.